Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Rabbi Singer.
Hi. So nice to see all of you.
It's great to see
I
you.
was just reading this really great article by Rabbi Jason Rubenstein, who's somebody I studied with a few years ago, talking about Tisha B'Av, which is the next holiday coming up on the Jewish calendar. It starts tonight, I believe, Wednesday night, and continues into Thursday. And I was wondering whether or not you guys celebrate or grew up celebrating Tisha B'Av. How do you feel about it?
So I'll start. I grew up, it would always happen at camp for me. So it was something that also at a reform camp, it was really difficult. Like I know my dad grew up like just they didn't go in the pool on Tisha B'Av. One year I remember we ate on the floor instead of like on tables. And like even as a kid, I don't think they explained it well enough because I didn't know why we were eating on the floor. But yeah, that was my Tisha B'Av experience growing up.
I was going to say camp too for me. And I'm in a camp setting now in a couple days getting ready for this and reminding myself that in this same, with these same programs and traditions I'm doing here, I also did them as a camper. As a camper, I do remember feeling as a Reformed Jew in a more observant kind of, Glock kosher orthodoxy camp, that the upper unit kids took the fasting very, very seriously. And as a younger camper, there seemed to be like this weird fervor of getting excited about being old enough to fast, and that it was like the cool thing to do it. So I remind myself every summer when I see the kids go through this that maybe there's something kind of special about Tisha B'Av, that it started to teach kids about getting excited about adult ritual and observations that we get to have as adults that we often think of as really, really awful or mundane. And that for kids, sometimes we forget how exciting it is to fast for the first time. So
Yeah.
that's,
Oh my
that's what
God. But
made
I
me
just,
think
I
of.
think of those years of like fasting in Jerusalem and how hot. Like it's just like it's such a rough, for me at least, such a rough fast that I felt like I could never do it without water. Like I just felt like it was like not safe. And I remember having less observant friends, even of mine. And I grew up Reformed, but I had a mom who grew up much more traditional. So we had a kosher home, and we did a lot more traditional observances of different things. And but I remember I had less traditional friends, and they would go. They called it actually Beach B'Av, and they actually went to the beach on Tisha B'Av, and I just felt like, wow. Well, I mean, that's a statement. And so, I don't know, but for me, it's always been like kind of a mixed thing because as a Reformed Jew, and actually any Jew who has a rabbinic origin, which is all Jews of today, the transformation from temple life to rabbinic life, and from temple, observing these animal sacrifices versus praying, like it just seems like it's such a it's an interesting thing. We can lament certain things on Tisha B'Av, but the destruction of the temple and the opening for rabbinic life seems like a strange thing to only lament, versus to also observe in a different way. I don't know. What about you, Rabbi Singer? How's it been for you?
I'm so happy to hear all of these different experiences because I did not grow up observing Tisha B'Av at all. I know I had heard of it, but I just never celebrated it. And if you're watching and you haven't heard of Tisha B'Av, which I think is true for a lot of Reform Jews, it is a holiday that happens on the 9th of Av on the Jewish calendar, where the rabbis decided that a lot of the bad things that happened to the Jewish people happened on this date, including the destruction of both of the temples. And so it's a day of mourning and fasting. And when I learned about it, or I learned more about it as an adult, I felt kind of resentful towards it, because I think that it's it's hard to encounter. Sometimes it's hard to encounter new rituals and traditions as an adult. And I just want to name that, like, even if you're a rabbi and you're really into Jewish traditions, sometimes you learn about something and you're like, I'm just not, that doesn't really speak to me that much. And why is these people telling me to fast? I thought we only fasted one day a year. Turns out not true. But yeah, I wanted to name that. And I think that part of what I find challenging about Tisha B'Av, which Rabbi Rubenstein expresses so clearly in his article, is that there are some times when the Jewish calendar and the secular calendar sync up really well. Like the fact that Rosh Hashanah happens in the fall is perfect because we're starting over again, and we associate the fall with starting school and a new season, and so it makes so much sense. Or the Hanukkah in the winter, right? Like Festival of Lights when it's dark outside, totally makes sense. But on the Jewish calendar, the summer is a time of mourning, and he thinks that that's probably because if you're in the summer in Israel, it's hard. You're in the desert. It's very hot. It's not necessarily that nice of a time. Whereas in America, we do not spend our summer mourning. The summer is a time of beauty and going outside and celebrating and joy. And when holidays like the 4th of July and Tisha B'Av kind of intersect, it can be very confusing. And I think that's also why so many Reform Jews who have only learned about it at summer camp, it's a weird place to have a holiday of fasting and mourning. But this year, I wanted to try to get more into Tisha B'Av because one, I think it's good to try new things as an adult and to try new Jewish things. And I think that's important as a rabbi to keep doing. And two, I do think that the holiday does match our mood a lot more this year. And I wanted to read this quote from the Talmud from Ta'anit 11a, which says, "When the community is immersed in suffering, a person should not say, 'I will go into my home and eat and drink, and my soul will be at peace.'" So it's this idea that when the world is suffering, we should do ritual practices that reflect that suffering, even though it's hard and it's not fun, because that can help us be more in touch with the wider experience of the world, and then will lead us to giving tzedakah and lead us to having greater empathy. So I was just wondering if we could quickly go around and say, a new thing that we've tried recently and how it went for us. Because I might try fasting on Thursday. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably fast for at least part of the day, even though I don't usually do that. And I was wondering if you guys have tried anything new lately.
I'll start. Something that I'm doing new recently that is also something that I'm trying to work into my regularness, my regular being, is I've had to go to physical therapy. And the biggest thing about physical therapy is all of the homework they give you to do. It's really easy to do it there with the trainer, but doing it at home is difficult. And working that into every morning and evening and afternoon. One of the things that I really found interesting about being there is there's all these other people doing their own thing. And it might be something like just doing this. And you have no idea what each person is dealing with. You have no idea what the pains each person is going through just by doing this. And it just always, every time I'm there, just reminds me of absolutely, this is not a place of judgment at all, because you absolutely have no idea what's going on for each and every person. But yeah, and then I sit at home and do little movements, and I feel crazy, but I know how much those little movements are important for me. But it is difficult to get it going all the time.
Yeah, I'm so frustrated you have to deal with all that. I mean, for me, I feel like every summer I come here, I'm not with you guys. I don't have my foundation of worship and davening. And every summer I'm reminded about how much I love how we worship. There are things here that feel new to me every summer, Rena. I moved from Hakol to Meitim in the Amidad in our vote very quickly. And,
Even if you refer to it as avot versus avot,
exactly.
Right.
ancestors of
Thank you,
our
Rabbi.
mothers and fathers versus just
Mhm.
in our tefillah and essential
Yeah.
prayer.
So for me, not only do I have to learn ways to still be very centered and engaged in things that sometimes are even a little bit jarring for where I'm at now in my practice and in our practice. So yeah, that's like my challenge, my new, but also I can't wait to come home to you and play the guitar again at services.
Well, I have to say that for us, you've been here through this saga of us adopting a puppy. And so she came home 3 days ago now. This is our third day. So last night was our second night, and we did sleep training. And I don't know if you've ever done any kind of sleep training, but she yelped and then cried in ways that I have never heard her.
Brutal.
Yeah, and like the moans and
it's more painful than ferberizing. Do you remember ferberizing when they were doing ferberizing for children?
No, what's ferberizing?
Where you just had a little child cry in the crib and let them just, manage. It was a new way of child rearing, and it's gone now.
Well, the thing is that to hear her, and the thing about it is that for me, what was so hard is to know that it's actually good for her. But that night of hearing her cry all night, not all night, but until she could self-soothe, it was so counterintuitive. And I think that, Rabbi Singer, as you mentioned, how as an adult, it's really hard to learn something new. That I think also it's so hard when you know what you need when you cry and what would be helpful, and then to not do that because knowing for another being that's actually not going to be what's going to be ultimately helpful is so hard. And it's interesting because I have to remind myself of that in so many different situations where what I want to do in order to, like, what I would want somebody to do for me is not necessarily what someone else would want done for them. And to remind myself of that is so hard. And I felt like last night, every 2 hours, I was reminded of that because we would take her to go to the bathroom and then take her back in to her crate to be able then to get ready to rest for that period. And so every 2 hours, I was reminded of that lesson all last night. And it stays with me today, both the heartbreak and also the lesson.
Coco. I've had puppies. I get it.
And we've had human interaction, right? Like with other people who say, that's how you want to help me in this situation. Hey, that's not what I need. And for us to remember, like, to actually take everybody's cues for what they need, even if that's not what they are expressing right in that moment. So
how about you, Rabbi Singer?
Well, I think for me the main thing is going to be, trying out Tisha B'Av and see how I feel about it. But I've also been trying meditating because I'm spending a lot of time by myself in a new place, and so I feel like this is I'm using the Headspace app, and the man who narrates it has a very calming British accent, and I find that so
yeah, I'd say that Monday meditation at 9 o'clock is like a little slice of meditation heaven.
It is.
Our musicians are beyond, like, they're just beyond, and our cantor as well.
No, I just
I just
basically
have
mute
that.
myself and weep the whole time. It's
It's just, and it's
It's so
so,
nice.
yeah, they're good. It's good. It's a good, if you wanted to meditate even more, it's a nice time to engage.
Rabbi, I'm so glad you brought this, sweet little spotlight on Tisha B'Av, which deserves a little bit of love. I do think that if the rabbis back then had the basic vacation schedule of most of people, they would have reconsidered, possibly when they did this. But I'm glad we're doing
Who
it.
knows? Or maybe it was like a little zets.
Yeah.
Let's do it at the very most difficult time
Yeah.
to fast.
Let's wait till they're on the cruise.
Yeah.
I miss you, rabbis.
We miss you too.
I'll be home
No,
soon.
it's funny though, Cancer. We miss you, but we feel you.
I'm
Like
so glad.
it's so you might be in Maine, but it feels like you're right here with us.
I feel like I'm with you. I miss you guys though. I'm gonna be home soon. Get back to Hakol and everything.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Yeah, and I'll just say just one more with like Tisha B'Av, that I feel like the ninth of Av, it's so rich. And I know I shared this last time that we talked, but I love Stephanie Ives' teaching that sometimes you just need to rest and weep about the brokenness in our world before you can actually step back up and try to fix it. And so, for me, it's been such a great kavanah or great intention every year when Tisha B'Av comes. I'm grateful to her for that teaching too. Fast or no fast, but b'hatzlacha, good luck on your fast.
Thank you.
Yes.
We'll see how it goes. I like food a lot, so.
Thanks, rabbis.
Have a wonderful week.